I'm lucky you're my kid.
I'm lucky you're my mom.
Oh, thanks, bud.
Once again, I am fine.
What's your story? What's your sign? It's like we're twin flames in a different life.
My name is Paxton. My gender, well, I basically change my gender every day. I forget what it's called. Gender fluid. I changed my gender 4 times.
Quadruple. Oh.
Because I started off boy, then I changed to girl, and then I changed to they, and then I changed to changing my gender every day, which basically I changed it millions of times.
Okay, so now I understand. Triple trans or quadruple trans, because that's the amount of times that we have had some changes so far. And then we've got Mum with us today, who I've known for a few years, an amazing worker in counseling services here in Lethbridge, Alberta. Would you mind a quick introduction, Heather?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm Heather, she, her. And yeah, I'm just the lucky and very fortunate parent to Paxton.
I think it's really awesome that we get to create this form of representation, because you brought up how there's not often maybe seeing young kids that are talking about queer experiences. Would you mind sharing, you've already been quadruple trans, gender fluid, but maybe sharing a bit of your coming out story if you have one?
I need to think.
That's okay.
I changed from boy to girl, but then after that I didn't feel like either, and then my mom, when I was getting tucked into bed, I told my mom, I don't feel like girl or a boy. Is there any more genders? And then my mom's like, there's plenty more, like they, them. And I'm like, what's they, them? My mom told me it's a girl and boy mixed, and I'm like, that feels nice. And then I stayed with they, them for about a while now, like 3 years. And then me and my mom started talking about they, them, she, her, and genders. And then I learned that you could change your gender every day. So now I do that.
That is so awesome. Like, your mom basically just had a question for her and she gave you an open answer. A lot of people ask me, because I identify as a gay woman, and so they ask, how did you know, and all these sorts of things when you were young and a kid. And it was just kind of like a feeling that I had in my chest where I was like, hey, I actually like girls and not boys. Was that kind of the same feeling for you when you were like, I don't really feel like a girl or a boy?
Yeah, that's kind of like the same feeling.
That's really, really cool, and I think very special that your mom was able to just have that conversation with you. How was that for you, Heather?
I'm an older parent, I guess, and I was very intentional when I had kids. My goal is just to let them be who they're supposed to be. The narrative of waiting until your child is unhappy before they can come out seems problematic to me.
I agree.
So I think it was, with both our children. Yeah, it's always been part of the conversation that, as language has evolved too. So I think at that time when we were first talking about gender, it was like, you can be a she, a her, a boy, a girl, or both. And now I would probably expand on that. But that was sort of those, from when you were just little, hey?
Yeah, probably about 4.
Yeah. And even before that, You were
Wow.
pretty gender creative, even at daycare, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's reminding me of a conversation. I'm not sure if you've seen any of the series, Paxton, but I chatted with somebody named Kane who moved from Ontario to Alberta and then started his transition once he moved here. And he was talking about how he knew ever since he was really, really little that he wanted to be a boy and that he was a boy. And it's like, kids are not going to speak to those feelings unless they have them, and it's coming from a real place.
Yeah.
How are things at school? Because you must be in school. That's a silly question.
Yeah, I am in school. Things at school are good. Lots of the grade 3ers, because the grade 2ers are still getting used to it. The grade 2ers aren't. Or because they're new to our classroom. All the grade 3ers stayed here from last year because we have a 2-3 class.
And what did your teacher do last year that helped teach the kids? What book? You guys read a book, right?
my book I have. I forget what it's called.
Yeah. And what's in that book?
This kid named Ari, he didn't know what Ari was feeling that day, and then at the very end of the book, they said, I feel like fireworks, they, them.
I love that. And you know, when I was in school, we did not have any books like that in our classroom. And it might seem a long time ago, I might seem really old now, but honestly, it wasn't that long ago that I was in school. So to see the representation essentially is what you're talking about and how much that has changed, it's incredible. Do you find that the kids in your class, when you say that you change your gender every day, is that something that they are understanding really easily about you?
They are understanding it. The grade 2ers sometimes forget, and some of the grade 3ers are like trying to stand up for me, and they go like, he's a they, but then I'm like, they is a they, whispering into their ear, and then they rephrase it, and then the kids usually like, oh yeah, they're happy in this class.
Ah, that's awesome. And you know what I think is really cool about that? How easy it is for kids, even if they maybe make a mistake in the moment, to recorrect and then, you know, kind of fix that little mess up. And I think it's interesting that adults sometimes have such a hard time with that. One other thing that your mom mentioned was Camp Dragonfly, but I don't know that much about it. What is Camp Dragonfly?
It's a camp. There's lots of groups in Camp Dragonfly. Of queer people or their siblings or trans people or they, them. Like any gender could go. Really fun camp. At the very last day of the week, you get to go to a pool.
That's the best day.
And it's in Edmonton. The one time when it was in person, which was this year, we stayed at the West End.
Nice. Every kid's dream.
Basically, the only rule at Camp Dragonfly is to have fun. I think you would have fun.
Oh, thanks. Again, I'm hearing about this as an adult, and I didn't come out until I was a lot older than you. So for me to hear about all of these experiences that you get to have at such a young age makes me feel a little emotional in a really happy way, because that's so important. And you get to meet lots of other queer kids your age at Camp Dragonfly?
Yeah. Because each group's aged, so and it's a good opportunity to meet new friends.
Which, again, is just kind of blowing my mind, because I don't know if you know this, Paxton, but part of the reason I started this interview series where I talk to queer Albertans is because sometimes you can feel a little lonely as a queer person living out here. To hear that you get to make all of these friends at this fantastic camp, you're winning already.
I guess that's kind of true.
Wow, I love it. Humility, kindness, it's perfect. Heather, how about we ask you some question? Because you mentioned a few points yourself, and this one I found really interesting. I'm going to read it here. You said, gratitude for the fights that I don't have to fight. Would you mind expanding a bit on what that means?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when I went to school, I was a kid in very rural Alberta in the 80s when
Slay.
I was in elementary school.
Same.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot in that experience. Just having so many things I thought I would have to fight for not be a fight has really challenged some of my own misconceptions, I guess, about where things are now. Even with the school, in kindergarten, I called a meeting and we had a meeting, and the kindergarten teacher was amazing. Great. All our teachers at our school have been amazing, not even a blink of an eye, which has been phenomenal. And I also think the teacher you have this year and last year is really, really clear about boundaries in the classroom. So if someone is being willfully ignorant or a little bit mean. Like the teachers are like on top of it in like a caring way, but a very clear way. And it's just like, nope, we're not doing this. And that wasn't what I anticipated would happen at all. Experiences like that, I'm like, oh, yes, like we're existing in such a different experience because people like yourself, like a lot of friends that I have, like have already done the fight. So I have just like, it wasn't a chosen fight a lot of the time. Sometimes it was, but I just have so much gratitude for that because, yeah, we don't have to fight too hard right now, hey?
Yeah, we don't need to fight so hard.
Yeah, we just kind of show up and just do our life.
We just show up.
You know, and that's because there's space. But we didn't create that space, and I'm really aware that we're stepping into a space that was fought for before us. I get to live and see the difference that it's made in real time with my small human.
And this immediately makes me think, like, I am not the expert on up-to-date politics in Alberta, but I do know that our current provincial government in the past has really tried to cut support for things like GSAs, so gay-straight alliances for queer youth in schools. And when we hear about you and Paxton and your story, it really just shows how important it is to have those resources and that support for teachers to be the best allies that they can be to queer children.
You know, I think there is a part of me that very much is involved in politics, and
we have to be.
Yeah, and is braced and as prepared as one can be for what may or may not come. So it's like we're not done fighting. I'm in a lot of different groups online and stuff like that, where it's like I'm at a very different stage of the journey, I guess, than some other maybe parents are. So trying to contribute to those spaces in the ways that I can, just to keep making sure we get to keep moving forward.
Totally. And Paxton, can I ask you, when we talk about how important it is for you to feel supported and loved and seen for the beautiful person that you are at school, what would you say to maybe anybody with power who's listening about why that's so important for you?
I'd probably say, hey, well, if you don't believe in them, I can stand up for myself, and I have friends.
I'm fine. It's cool. Yeah. How old are you? Can I ask you, how old are you, honey?
8.
You're 8. Oh. Okay, yeah. You are 8 years old and so strong, so incredibly strong to be able to say that. I hope you know that.
I think my friends tell me that every day.
I am fine. I hear you say that, and I can't help but wonder, do you feel maybe so confident in who you are because you've always had such supporting parents, too?
I feel happy with all of my amazing friends and family.
Aw, I love you.
I feel like one of the cool things about this too is we get to talk as two queer people from different generations with different experiences. So I think about if my parents had been as open in the conversations that you had so young and able to explain things and say that there was a place for me in the world, maybe my whole life would have been a little different and feeling as happy in who I am the way you are. So that's just really powerful for me to see the difference that affirmation can make. So that kind of reinforcement that everything is okay at such a young age. I think some of the pushback when it comes to exposing kids to queer education or other ways of being in the world comes from this idea of how can you know at such a young age, or this fear piece with parents. What would you say to that kind of response?
Well, I think actually Paxton said it to us. So this is the example I usually use. Is it okay if I share your heart story?
Yeah.
Okay. So understanding of boy, girl, and both came before pronouns did, like just cognitively. age-wise, pronouns are kind of a hard thing to grasp for a 4-year-old.
Totally. And some 40-year-olds, I think.
Yeah. I think Paxton actually gave us the language, and I was curious, and it's an open curiosity in our house. And I said, what happens inside when you hear boy? And do you remember what you did?
Yeah, I said, I don't like that because it hurts my heart.
Yeah, you said it felt like this, is what you did. And then I said, what happened when you hear girl?
I feel like this.
A little more. Still a little
All right.
And then what happened when you heard they, them?
I'm like, I fit into this.
Yeah, and you actually went,
Wow.
that's actually what you did with your body. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can't
That
argue
is
with that.
awesome. No, how do you argue with that when it's, you just want to stay there?
So I think that's the first one, and that's the more powerful one for me. And I think also, like, I have 2 kids, and my oldest is thus far cis. And but like I actually had a lot more energy into all things more like gender neutral and really pushing pushing against traditional gender norms with my older child. And with Paxton, I actually, I did a lot of filtering of things that people gave us and stuff, actually, with my first child. And then with Paxton, I had some complications, and I didn't have that energy after, and, to do the filtering. And you are still both exactly who you are meant to be.
What can you say maybe about loving and supporting your children for who they are?
Oh, man. That's the goal. Yeah, it's just the goal, and all parts of them, I think gender identity is just one part of identity, so it's we just support who you are. Yeah, I don't know, it's just full stop.
Plain and easy. And that's what strikes me when I hear you speak, is that it's exactly that. It's plain and easy for the both of you in relation to one another, listening to each other and learning together. And I think, I don't know, even in my experience, for example, my mom and dad know that I'm gay, but it's a part of me that they choose to ignore. So to hear that this is how it's going for you, it's very powerful.
It very is powerful.
It very is. Yep.
Yeah, people are integrated. We don't get to pick and choose. From a parenting aspect, sometimes that's where as a parent, have struggled, is looking for communities of other parents who are in celebration rather than fear. There's a lot of groups for parents of trans kids kind of out there, but it's no, this can be celebratory. It doesn't have to be the worries of all the what ifs. I think that's another thing just inherent in who I am, is we need to also root down into the celebration.
What are some of your favorite things about being queer? Can I ask you that?
My first favorite thing is that sometimes you can make really good friends. That you can know all the other genders. But always ask first what their gender is, because sometimes it's not nice just to just being he looks weird, but that's not actually cool. You could ask first, what is your gender?
Yeah, and it's just a really nice way to be kind to each other too, hey? One of my favorite things about being queer is that it's made me very strong, like what you said earlier, but I think it's made us strong in different ways. And this is not to erase maybe some of the harder days or bad days that you've had, but it sounds like there's been so much support in your life that strength just comes from love, right? My strength came from having to learn how to love myself, despite others maybe not doing that for me. And I think that's really, really special, that difference between the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
You got excited when I said that your strength comes from love. What did that make you feel like?
That made me feel strong and powerful.
Oh, that's what I'm here to do. You have to have fun and feel strong and powerful.
You feel like you covered everything pretty good?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just thank you so much for the space, like for being able to meet and provide voice.
Me and your mom were chatting earlier again about how important it is for other kids to see this and hear this, and even parents. So I think you're doing something very awesome today, Paxton.
I think so as well.
Normally at this point in the interview, what I do is if my participants, so the people I talk to, if they have social media or anything like that, I give them the chance to share how listeners or viewers can stay in touch with them. But I think this situation is a little different. So maybe maybe Camp Dragonfly, I think it was called, or anything that you would want to talk about a little more right now to send those listeners there?
Camp Dragonfly's in Edmonton, and I think you go to Dragonfly. You sign in online. I think that's what my mom did. And Camp Dragonfly is usually for kids, to the age of 12. And then there's another camp. I forget what it's called. Firefly for older ones over 12.
Do you know what are the names of your two favorite books?
I forget the one I was talking about that I read to my class.
It feels good to be myself.
It feels good to be myself. And
what are my words?
What are my words?
Okay, so everybody listening, if you have kiddos or just want to check out some cool books, those are the two right from Paxton, recommended.
Very recommended.
I think I've told you this already a lot today, kiddo, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I am 26 years old, and you have inspired me so much today.
Thank you.
I'm lucky you're my kid.
I'm lucky you're my mom.
Oh, thanks, bud.
Once again, I am fine.